77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts, including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. Noted attorney, commentator, and essayist, and our co-host, Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and we are indeed honored and privileged today to have our very good friend, the very esteemed, well-respected, and great leader of the United States House of Representatives, Speaker Mike Johnson, a great constitutional lawyer, a great public servant, and a great Speaker of the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, it is an honor and a privilege to have you aboard on Let the Record Show today. Thank you for being on.
Well, thank you, Judge and gentlemen. Some of my favorite people, hosts of this show, so it's a great honor to be with you.
Well, I'm going to turn you over to the searing cross-examination of our good friend, Eric Levine. When Eric is finished with you, Mr. Speaker, Jesse will have some questions for you as well. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I generally measure the success of my cross-examinations by leaving my witnesses sobbing uncontrollably, but we'll try not to do that here. But it's a real pleasure and an honor to have you here, and it's a real honor to be able to call you a friend, and I'm delighted that you could join us. Thank you for coming.
Yes, indeed.
So I want to talk to you about that big, beautiful bill. Tell us about some of the stuff we don't know. I guess the things that really leap to mind is there have to have been some things going on behind the scenes that the public just doesn't know. I mean, I think people have visions of Chip Roy arm wrestling and body slamming Mike Lawler. There had to be some stuff going on there that we just don't know about. Are there any nice anecdotes or great anecdotes you could tell us about how this sausage was made?
Thanks, Eric. One day I'll write a 3-volume set about the passage of this bill because there is so much that went on behind the scenes and lots of personal stories, lots of heroic efforts by a lot of people. You named one of them, Mike Lawler, was essential to getting this thing done, and so many others. Our New York delegation, I tip my hat to these guys. We call them our majority makers because they're so critical for us maintaining the Republican majority. But guys like Andrew Garbarino and Nick LaLota and Elise Stefanik, I mean, they were Claudia Tenney, all of them, just intimately involved in every step and every detail of getting this bill over the line and helping us build consensus. And, we have one of the smallest margins in the history of the United States Congress. We can only spare 3 votes at present. But for about 90 of the first 100 days of the Congress, we had a literal 1-vote margin. So there's no room for error at all. And I count on these guys to help us, and they did in a crunch. And it's a hugely important thing for the country.
So a couple things about the bill. So there's information coming out about the bill. What is it that you don't think people are hearing enough about that deserves more attention? And what is it that's being discussed that you think is just flat out wrong and is disinformation?
Well, we could spend a couple hours on both those categories because really we call it the one big beautiful bill for a reason. There's so much here. What's important to point out is that America First is no longer just an agenda. It's now the law of the land. I mean, we got the lion's share of all of our campaign promises over that line. We delivered in this bill, and the American people gave us a clear mandate. And after 4 years of Democrats' abject failure, we delivered all they asked for, and we did it on America's 249th birthday. So it's just pure poetry. But I tell you what, the big, beautiful bill, one thing that no one's talking about is that in the bill, among so many other things, we codified 28 of the president's most important executive actions. His executive orders are now solidified in the law, the written law, so they can't be undone by the next president. But at the same time, we had the biggest investment in border security in generations. We've made historic tax cuts, and we made them permanent. We also cut wasteful spending at the same time. The largest savings for taxpayers in the history of the Congress. All this in one bill. We unleashed American energy dominance. We restored peace through strength by historic investments in our military-industrial base. And we returning to a government that puts Americans first, strengthening the safety net programs, just so much in here. And we'll be unpacking this for quite some time.
So one of the mantras that the Democrats like to fall back on is that people will die. I mean, I think if Republicans found the cure for cancer, the Democratic rejoinder would be people will die. So
100%.
But I think the focus is being directed at Medicaid, these alleged cuts.
Yeah.
Can you cut through that nonsense? Can you explain to the American people precisely what this bill does vis-a-vis Medicaid?
Yes, absolutely, and you're right. They are engaging in a massive misinformation campaign. Put it bluntly, as New Yorkers do. They're lying, okay, and they know it. They're claiming that people are going to lose their health care and people are going to die. It's just absurd. There are no cuts to Medicaid in this bill. In fact, Medicaid will continue to grow a couple $100 billion over the course of the time period that this bill covers. And so the left is just lying about it. What we did here is not harm Medicaid. We strengthened the program. It's an essential safety net, and a lot of American citizens need and deserve it. But it's intended for vulnerable populations, for example, the elderly and disabled and young women, young pregnant women, for example, who just need a boost. Well, we're preserving it for them by stopping the fraud and abuse in the program. So we're going to kick off the 1.4 million illegal aliens that are getting coverage right now, stealing it from American citizens. That's not right, and we're getting them off of it. We're also reintroducing work requirements, Eric, because that's a common sense measure. We have young, able-bodied men with no dependents who are riding the wagon, and they need to help pull it. And so when we did the Obamacare expansions and all the states did that, you got a bunch of people on this program that were never intended to be there, and they're draining resources from those who really need it. So we've imposed a 20-hour-a-week requirement. I mean, it's nothing. They act like it's some sort of draconian requirement. All it says is you either have to have a job, be looking for a job, or volunteering in your community. And you and I both know, all of us know, that work is good for human dignity, for self-worth, and it allows somebody to contribute to their surroundings. And so by requiring that, we are proud to go in any town hall in any place in America and explain what we've done. And everybody, once they understand it, they nod their heads in agreement and say, of course we should do that. That's going to help strengthen the program, and we're going to cut out the fraud, waste, and abuse. You got about 4.7 million young, able-bodied people with no dependents who are riding the wagon. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. So we're proud of these reforms.
You know, one of the things that's interesting, if you look at polling, when you just talk about the big, beautiful bill, it doesn't poll well. But when you point to the specific items in the bill, those specific items individually poll exceedingly well. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, they do. And that's the thing, is that we're going to have a chance now to go out and educate everybody on what's really in the bill, to put down the lies that have been spread, and talk about all the great benefits. I mean, think of this. 40 million families are going to benefit from the increased child tax credit in the bill. 91% of Americans will benefit from an increased standard deduction. The bill puts about $1,300 back in the average family's pocket and slashes $1.6 trillion in government debt at the same time. I mean, this is good for everybody. All boats are going to rise. It'll be jet fuel to the economy. You're going to have no tax on tips, on overtime. We gave a great help to seniors, more tax benefits there. Everybody's going to be feeling better, and they're going to feel it before that midterm election, which is so critically important. And so the Democrats' lies are not going to hold weight, because we're going to have the obvious evidence to point to, and everybody will see that.
So I just want to shift gears for a second. As you are well aware, there's a mayoral race going on in New York City. The Democrats have selected Zohran Mamdani to be their stand-in bearer, and there are 3 or 4 people, independents, a Republican candidate, who are running against him. We all have our views here as to how this is all playing out, but I'm just curious, what are you hearing down in D.C., or what's your perception down in D.C. of the mayoral race up here?
Well, I tell you what, we're all watching it with stunning fascination. I mean, the Democrats seem to have learned nothing from their historic defeat in 2024, and they're going exactly in the opposite direction. I mean, the idea that they would rally around a radical, anti-Semitic, big government Marxist is just incredible to us. I mean, it's terrible news for New York City and all my friends there, but it's great news for House Republicans because we will point to this guy as really a symbol of the current Democrat Party. This is not your father's Democratic Party. They have gone far over the edge. And now the developments of the day this past week, the Democratic Socialists in New York City are emboldened by that primary win, and now they're saying they're going to go after 5 House incumbents next, including Hakeem Jeffries, who's the Democrat leader. So it's a time to be a Democrat, and we're going to use that to show the sharp contrast between them and their vision and ours.
Yeah, I will say that there always seems to be room for anti-Semitism in this Democratic Party. They talk about this big tent. I just kind of wonder if instead of saying globalize the Intifada, kill Jews wherever they are, he had said something like hang blacks. I wonder if they would still find that to be want to include him in the big tent. I mean, that's something I just find somewhat anathema.
It really is crazy, and it is as though they give cover to anti-Semites and people who truly advocate for violence against our Jewish brothers and sisters and fellow citizens. It's unconscionable. But this is one of the reasons, Eric, that the House Republicans are enjoying our highest approval ratings since 2011, while House Democrats have their lowest approval ratings in the history of polls. I mean, we're going in opposite directions because they keep doubling down on this madness, and people see through it. Man, we can trust the American people. They have a good barometer on what's right and what's wrong, and we're standing for the good and the right, and they're on the wrong side. And I think they're going to pay a penalty for that in the election cycle.
So just before I turn this over to my good buddy Jesse Garcia, I just want to make this final point. And every listener, I want you to. This is really important. When there were the explosions of anti-Semitism on college campuses across New York State, Columbia University being prime among them, Chuck Schumer was nowhere to be found. In fact, he was sending emails to Columbia University leadership to say, keep your heads down, it's just a Republican issue. Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, went to Columbia with Mike Lawler and Virginia Fox, and he went there and said this nonsense has to stop. That is a profile in courage. And Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you personally for that. And so with that, I'm going to turn you over to my good buddy, Jesse Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure to be with you today. And it's also been a pleasure to host you and your wonderful wife, Kelly, in Suffolk County several times in 2024. And thank you for your support of our candidates here, our members of Congress, Andrew Garbarino and Nick LaLota. And, you know, we've said this, I don't know if your staff has told you, but on this show on several occasions, and you being a man of faith as we are, we all believe that you are the speaker that this Congress needed and through its God-given faith has placed in there, because only someone like yourself could have put this in a small majority, get this bill and all the tough legislation approved with the small minorities. The small majority you have. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for your support of our Congress here, especially when it comes to something that needed to be corrected in New York for Garbarino, LaLota, and others, which was the SALT deduction. So I truly appreciate that.
Sure. Well, thanks for saying that, Jesse. And that was a really critically important issue for New Yorkers. And I understood that, and I helped them guide that through. And they did so well for their constituents. They fought the fight. I mean, and you got to understand that, you know, I'm from a red state in Louisiana and other red states around the country. They're no fans of the SALT deduction, right? But
no.
The New Yorkers, the New Yorkers stood so strong, and a handful of Californians. They really won the day, and it's a big thing to deliver for New York. I mean, I want to get some sort of small award to be an honorary New Yorker. Okay, I spent so much time up there, to your point, you know, during the election cycle, because as we say, it's true in the House Republican Conference, our majority runs through New York and California, and electing those guys like you named, they're critical. They're critical for us to be able to keep governing as we are and delivering to the American people, because if we don't have those seats in the blue states like we have, we don't have a majority, and the Democrats would turn this thing into total chaos. So I'm a big fan of those guys. I'm going to keep helping them. I'll be up there a whole lot during this election cycle as well, and you guys are going to get tired of seeing me.
We won't get tired. But just to follow up, as you said, the America First is no longer an agenda. It's a law with 28 executive orders now included in the big, beautiful bill, which is law. Now, there's the opportunity for Congress with 2 more reconciliation opportunities. Will Congress take advantage of those 2 reconciliation efforts? And if they do, what do you foresee them being, and what would be included in that? That maybe that needed to be, that could not make the grade in the first big, beautiful bill?
Yes, we have a lot of additional very important work to do. Okay, we're running a playbook that we designed we began this a year and a half ago. And Vince Lombardi said one time, victory loves preparation. And so we prepared all that. Well, next in the playbook is not only our appropriations bills, which we're going to work on at lower levels, rescissions bills that the White House is sending over for us to claw back spending that Congress previously appropriated but was being abused, waste, fraud, and abuse. But then also additional reconciliation bills, to your point. So we're planning one for the fall and one for next spring. The fall reconciliation bill would be attached to the FY26, fiscal year 26 measures, and the next one would be for FY27. We can do all that in this 2-year cycle, this 2-year Congress. But to do it, we got to keep moving steadily ahead, and we will. And meanwhile, at the same time, we're going to codify even more of those Trump executive orders and continue to roll back Biden regulations. So all of this is going to help the economy. All boats are going to rise. Job participation levels will go up, wages, more opportunity for more people. And we're going to demonstrate for them they made the right choice when they put Republicans in charge in 2024.
Mr. Speaker, it's Judge Weinberg again. I want to commend you, by the way, and I know this because Congressman Peter King, who's in the studio with us on Monday nights when we do the Katz and Cosby show together, has pointed out your great support to taking care of and protecting the victims of the 9/11 terrorist attack against New York. And he thinks that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I just want you to know, you don't have to be Jewish to love Levy's sliced rye bread.
That's right. Well, I do, and I tell you, Peter King is a hero of mine and a great man, and for him to say that is high praise. So I'm big fans of our New Yorkers, and to be a Republican and to stand for principle, sometimes against the odds in some of these districts is a big thing for the country, and we don't take it for granted.
So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you so much for being with us. Mike, on a personal level, again, this means a great deal to me and to all of us here. Keep doing what you're doing. You're a great patriot. You're doing great things for our country, and we look forward to you doing some more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen, and you got it. I look forward to seeing you all in person again as soon as I'm back up there.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we just had this wonderful interview with Speaker Mike Johnson, a great patriot, a great American, a great constitutional lawyer, one of the great speakers in the history of our constitutional republic, a man who's fought very, very hard with a very slim majority to protect and defend America and the American people, and we're very fortunate to have him as our guest. Please stay tuned. We'll be back in about a few moments with more interesting and important conversation on this week's Let the Record Show.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Buying a car shouldn't eat up your week. That's why Carvana made it convenient. Car buying that fits around your life, not the other way around. You can get pre-qualified for an auto loan in just a couple of minutes and browse thousands of quality car options, all within your terms, all online, all on your schedule. Turn car buying into a few clicks and not a full week's endeavor. Finance and buy your car at your convenience on Carvana. Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
Amazon One Medical presents Painful Thoughts.
I've been on hold to make a doctor's appointment for 23 minutes now. The automated voice has told me 47 times that my call is very important to them. I'm starting to think that they don't think my call is important at all.
With Amazon One Medical 24/7 virtual care, you'll get help fast without having to remain on the line to make an appointment. Amazon One Medical. Healthcare just got less painful.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. With us is our esteemed colleague and co-host, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist, Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. In our first segment, we had the great Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, with us, and that was indeed an honor and a privilege to have him with us. I want to shift gears, gentlemen. So there's an organization called the National Education Association, which is, I don't know, a union, a trade association, a something.
It's the largest union in the country. It has 3 million members.
Right. And these are people supposed to be caring about educating our kids and making them better Americans and protecting and defending the future of this country. So what do? They now vote to boycott the Anti-Defamation League. For those listeners who don't know what that is, that's an organization dedicated to civil rights, civil liberties, fairness, and decency for all groups, regardless of the religion or national origin.
But its core mission was to fight anti-Semitism. That's why it was originally created.
Right. And for many years, I was a member of the board of the Anti-Defamation League, and it's a great organization. But one can argue about that. I haven't followed the politics of it for a while. Look, as long as they're fighting, protecting against anti-Semitism and supporting and protecting the state of Israel, I'm happy. If they're not doing that, then I'm concerned.
Well, that was the problem.
Right. But now, all of a sudden, the NEA, National Education Association, decides to boycott them and break off all relationships with them when they did joint ventures in education with that organization. And that comes on the heel of the local union, United Federation of Teachers in New York City, endorsing Mandami, for mayor,
which is an affiliate of the NEA.
Right, and it's even worse because now there's noise in the system that this clown car of radical Islamist supporters and supporters of socialism, they want to bring back that Bowman character who got defeated for the House of Representatives, who's a rabid anti-Israel, anti-Semite left-winger. They want to bring him back and put him in charge of the Department of Education in New York City.
Make him the chancellor of schools. Yeah.
Make him chancellor of schools. And what will that do? We'll have more indoctrination of our kids. Eric, your thoughts?
Yeah, so why did the NEA lash out against the ADL? Because the ADL criticized the NEA for being pro-Hamas. And they pointed out that if you're pro-Hamas, it's anti-Semitic. So the NEA got its back up. So they decided that they were going to distance themselves and cut off all relations with the Anti-Defamation League. And the statement they made to justify it, they said, allowing the ADL to determine what constitutes anti-Semitism would be like allowing the fossil fuel industry to determine what constitutes climate change. Well, to that I would say the corollary to that statement is that allowing the NEA to determine what constitutes education is like allowing Joseph Goebbels to determine what constitutes the truth. I mean, these people are insane. I mean, it's clearly anti-Semitic, the action that they're taking. Now, I will say this. The ADL, in many ways, put themselves in this own position, as we were discussing a little before. Jonathan Greenblatt, who was in the Obama administration, took over the ADL when he left government, and he adopted the social justice DEI nonsense as part of their mainstream of how they wanted to lead the ADL. Now, of course, DEI and social justice are inherently racist and anti-Semitic, so they were embracing this woke progressive agenda, and then they wonder why, people lose faith in who they are. But it isn't because that they weren't being supportive of enough of the Jews. They were basically selling out the Jewish community, and notwithstanding that, when they point out being pro-Hamas is anti-Semitic, the NEA turns on them. So maybe there's a lesson to be learned here for mainstream Jewish organizations. Maybe you should be more worried about the mission of fighting anti-Semitism than raising money from progressives. So if you stay focused on what the core mission is, you'll probably be better served in the long term. But the NEA didn't leave itself, didn't end its the resolutions there. They passed the second resolution, and in an effort to quote unquote defend democracy. So the NEA resolved that they would use the term fascism in materials characterizing Trump programs and actions. Now,
say that again?
Yeah, they said they're going to use the term fascism in materials that characterize Trump programs and actions. Now, to put a finer point on it, they misspelled the word fascism.
Maybe they should go back to school.
Well, that just tells you. So they spell fascism. So the fact that these educators can't even spell the word fascism, it merely highlights the point that reading, writing, and math and history are meaningless when compared to the challenge of indoctrinating our children. Spelling aside, it would come as a shock to me if even 10% of the NEA's 3 million members knew what fascism was. But everything's is fascist. So I think what happens with these unions, they have these teachers' unions, whether it's the United Federation of Teachers or the NEA, they don't give a damn about educating children. If a kid gets educated, it's by accident because they don't care. All they care about is advancing some political agenda.
Weren't these the same people, by the way, who shut down our schools?
Yeah, of course. So they adopt this radical left-wing agenda which is prime among any other goal. And if kids get educated, well, it just so happens. And, of course, they just want as much money as they can get for their rank and file, again, irrespective of whether or not that finds its way into classrooms and whether or not children are educated. So I think this also brings home the point out we really have to start rethinking of whether or not public employee unions should have the right to collectively bargain. Because what you end up having when you have in a state like New York, where you have a one-party state, you have the New York City's teachers unions, New York State Teachers Union, or the NEA, when they negotiate contracts, and the person sitting on the other side of the table is a member of the Democratic Party. They're basically on both sides of that negotiation.
Look what happened in Chicago.
Yeah, because the person you're negotiating with, you're contributing massive amounts of money into their coffers for their campaigns to get reelected, and they want to pay you back with a wonderful contract. That's why you can't have public employee unions have the right to collectively bargain. It's one thing for a private union to collectively bargain, because a private company can always go to the nuclear option. They can go out of business. But a state, a city, a municipality, they can't just go out of business. They can't just close the schools. They can't stop picking up the garbage. They can't turn away. They can't say we're not going to have any police unless you're Zohar Mamdani and you want to do away with the police. But the issues that this brings out are almost endless. But at the end of the day, what we see is that the Democratic Party is actually becoming more and more the Socialist Democratic Party. And Zoran Mamdani is becoming more and more the face of that party. And socialism, of course, is just one step away from communism. And what these people want to bring to our schools, to our cities, to our state, our policies that failed in Cuba, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, North Korea, Communist China, Nicaragua. That's what they want to bring to us. And unless and until we stand up and we start fighting against this and pointing this stuff out, we're going to just go further and further down this maelstrom. I mean, this is just not going to stop. We are going to have to say no. And the only way to say no is to show up and vote and elect people that are going to stand with us.
Jesse, I want to raise this question and get your thoughts on it. And this is the question. Since now Zoran Mamdani is now the
Mamdani,
whatever his name is, I'm trying to forget it, trying to suppress it. If this person goes into November election and has divided candidacies against him. And there was a press conference which was held past Monday. It was put together by John Catsimatidis of WABC. The speakers were former Governor David Patterson, a great Democrat in a traditional sense, and myself, talking about the threat of having all these so-called independents running against Mandami, and this fellow can win with a plurality because there's no runoff and there's no ranked choice voting. This is very, very dangerous. So this is a question I pose to you, Jesse. Can New York City be saved from a racist, anti-Semitic, class warfarist whose ignorance and ideology makes him wholly unqualified to be mayor of the greatest city in the world? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, immediately my answer off the hip is no, it can't be. We will harken back to the times of the 1970s and the Dinkin years where crime ran rapid, the economy was obliterated, a mass exodus of the population and the business and the economic engine of the city of New York. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see basically an apocalypse in the city of New York. But before I go on to that further, I do want to just jump and follow up on the NEA, breaking ties with the ADL. Number one, what I'm surprised is that they're so transparent now. Instead of doing this in the quietly in the corners, secretly in the back rooms, that you have a group like the NEA and the UFT and others that are they're doubling down on their radicalism and their left-wing agenda. But are we really surprised by this? I'm surprised by the fact that they're so open about this, because for years, up until COVID, we did not know what they were teaching our kids. These are the same groups that battles parents who question their curriculum at local school boards. These are the same groups that represent individuals who, and the teachers wanted to get back in the classrooms, but their unions wouldn't want them. But they were ones that held back their classes, their teachers from going back into the classroom during COVID, or even when COVID was subsiding. And the people who are lost here are those kids for 2 to 4 years. That class has lost its ability to mature, to interact socially, and really to learn. So, this is nothing more than they're continuously going forward. And as to pick up what Eric said, for them, the NEA and their leadership, it's about money. It's not about compensation with merit. And it's to win, it's for the purposes of supporting Democrats and the socialist democratic agenda. And that's what's going to be problematic in our classrooms and something that we have to fight. Now, as from, as we said, the UFT has already endorsed Mandami. And you can only imagine what is going to happen in our classrooms now. Everything that this socialist communist wants to do is going to require money. He can try and raise taxes on the wealthy, on the businesses, on the white communities, and so on and so forth, to try and pay for free transportation, free groceries, free housing, free rentals, maybe reduce rental rates and such. Basically collapse the economic structure of the city of New York, where you have the haves and the have-nots. And you're going to see a mass exodus, if not already, of that possibly going on, because there's nobody going to be here to pay for any of that. So one of the questions I wish that we were going to ask the speaker, and maybe we shouldn't have because it's kind of tenuous, is that, President Trump floated the specter of the federal government's playing some role here. Perhaps it's withdrawing federal funds. Perhaps he used it as maybe taking control of the city, like the Washington, D.C., the city of Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, is, basically governed by the federal government through Congress and the executive branch. It'll be interesting to see how that transpires. But in the short term, you are seeing politicians who are spineless and feckless, like Schumer and others, that are simply going to back this guy for their own political hide. The fact that this one win, and you know what, in political circles it was dramatic, but not unexpected, because it's happened in the past here in the city of New York, where a small group of people can take on and influence a small turnout. And that's what happened here. I think 1 million people voted in this primary, as opposed to 9 million people voting and calling New York City home. So it was a small minority that won their majority, and unfortunately, it looks like it's going to end up with a Mandami mayoral status. But at that point, we're going to see probably the demise of our great city. Criminals are going to be rewarded. Bad policies are going to be enacted. They're going to be doubled down, and what we're going to do is going to cost families, it's going to cost businesses, and it's going to cause the economic and moral and lawful pranks of that city.
Well, it's more complicated than that. The reason it's more complicated than that is New York City is the economic engine for the state of New York. So if New York goes under that, who do you think provides all the revenues statewide? The upstate is totally dependent upon New York City revenues. It's absolutely essential. The jobs are there. The cultural opportunities are there. The hospitals are there. The charities are there. New York City goes under, New York State is in jeopardy. New York State is in jeopardy, then the country is in jeopardy because we're one of the two leading drivers of the U.S. economy. All the major businesses and finance and media are here. This is very serious business.
We've already seen that. We're already feeling that exodus from New York City.
Yeah, well, we've been leading this. We've been leading the country in out migration for years.
Exactly,
and that's just going to go into hyperdrive.
These industries, they're finding other areas, technology, and I guess maybe one benefit of COVID that came out is that we've seen where unfortunately businesses don't have to be on Wall Street or Broad Street and such. They can be in other places. That's what we should do, is have to double down and compete to maintain these businesses here, grow these industries here, because they have now, through technology, alternatives and cheaper alternatives and safer alternatives, quite frankly, in other regions. But you're absolutely correct. New York City goes down. You can see all these bloated revenues that is being spent on very similar programs by Kathy Hochul and the Albany Democrats, and the local Democrats here. They're looking to spend that same pot of money. The pot of money is not going to be there.
Yeah, so I mean, Jesse, to your point about, D.C., there's a huge difference between D.C. and New York. Of course, the District of Columbia is a federally run area. So Congress does have responsibility for funding it and generally running it. There's a mayor, but basically Congress oversees what's going on there. New York's is different. It's
different. New York is
so
different. It's
going to have to be a purse string kind of thing. And this is going to be the catch-22 that the Trump administration is going to find itself. So if it can cut off funding, but if it cuts off funding, to Richard's point, that could drive New York City into bankruptcy and over the abyss. But if you continue to put in money to advance policies that for instance, for the schools to teach social justice and DEI, you don't want to fund that stuff. You want to cut that stuff off, or you want to pour money into New York City so that you can house the homeless in the subways, or put money into New York City so you can be building city and state-run supermarkets in the boroughs. You don't want to be funding communism. You don't want to be funding anti-Semitism. You don't want to be funding really bad, fighting ICE. You want ICE to be able to function. So if the federal government may be put in the position of either cutting off funding and running the risk that New York goes bankrupt, or putting money into the city and advancing these policies that are absolutely counterproductive and only make things worse.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. Let me point this out to you. Having in my years as general counsel, city council, having worked on 14 different city budgets, the annual budget of the city of New York. Right now, the budget of the city of New York is about $115 billion. Now, we know that the Democratic Party is affiliated with these NGOs, these non-government organizations. They're a bunch of grafters and grifters. And they fund an infrastructure that provides a mechanism to give them payroll people to work politically, gives them a mechanism for indoctrination and payoffs for that infrastructure. They waste money preposterously. There's no real oversight or understanding of how that money is spent. So what you're doing is you're going to be turning over to an avowed Marxist, an anti-Semite, a racist, a class warrior against productive people. You're turning over that budget. You're also sending out a message in terms of public safety and law and order. What's that message? You think the cops are going to stay on the payroll?
This is a guy who has said that the New York City Police Department is a force for evil.
Right. So you think the cops are going to stay? They'll either retire early or just get the hell out. And that's a problem. So what are you going to do for public safety? And this is a man who's committed to fighting ICE. So you think protecting us against illegal migrants and their gangs and the cartels, you think he's going to work with ICE? And by the way, the undercover operations that go on, both by NYPD and federal authorities, with respect to radical Islamic extremism, violent jihadists in our midst, you think he's going to allow them to do those undercover operations?
He's already said that he thinks that we should not cooperate with ICE and that ICE should be outlawed.
So this is a dangerous man. I say to you, Jesse, and to you, Eric, and to our listeners, Mondami is a clear and present danger to the survival of the city of New York, the state of New York, and indeed the country. This is a man who has to be defeated. And I call upon the candidates who remain in the race, whether it's Sliwa or Adams or Cuomo or Walton, get out of this race. Make it a head-to-head fight between good and between evil. Because otherwise we're going to wake up and we're going to see ourselves in a disastrous situation. Jesse, your thoughts?
I can't disagree with you. I mean, but if all those people get out of the race, then it's him by himself. So what needs to happen is they have to coalesce. They have to coalesce. And unfortunately, I mean, if you look at it, you have Adams that's under attack by his own actions and his own failings of his administration. You have a failed and disgraced governor that had to be forced to resign. And you have a Republican that really has run multiple times, has not gained any support, and unfortunately refuses to come off the ballot. You have a perfect storm here for truly an abomination to begin the process of taking over the mayoral position of the city of New York. I think that hopefully, pride and ego and self-interest are set aside, and that these three individuals come together to coalesce and at least put the interests of the city of New York first and foremost. Its residents, its businesses, its neighborhoods, the people, the places where they grew up in here. Because I would, everyone on the Mondami side wants to say that, he has rewritten the playbook and rewritten the story of New York and rewritten politics in New York. It truly hasn't. It truly hasn't. The options given before the voters were one of those that are being disastrous. The Working Families Party had, in a small turnout election, was able to exert its left-wing agenda to make sure what's going, to get their end game, which was to defeat Andrew Cuomo at the polls. What needs to happen now is that these three individuals or four individuals that still remain about have to check their egos at the door. They have to get together and put what's for best and right for the city of New York. If not, it is Armageddon in the city of New York, economically, socially, culturally, in every which way you can find it. In every neighborhood, it doesn't matter, black, brown, Asian, white, you name it, it's going to be, this cancer is going to run and race to every neighborhood.
Well said. We're taking a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in but a few moments with our final segment of today's Let the Record Show. Stay tuned.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Rated T for Teen. Each year, thousands of adults lose their shred. It's an epidemic simply known as shred loss. But it doesn't have to be this way. Because rekindling your shred is as easy as playing the new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. And with new parks, cross-platform multiplayer, and sick new game modes, we can put an end to shred loss everywhere. Get the new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 and show the world that the shred's not dead. Get Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 available now.
Living with schizophrenia isn't easy, especially when you're not getting relief from some of your symptoms. It can be hard when you're still dealing with symptoms, like hearing voices or seeing things that aren't there. And negative symptoms, like feeling unmotivated or avoiding social situations. If this sounds familiar, it might be time to talk to your healthcare provider and explore a different kind of schizophrenia treatment. Discover your possibilities at treatingscz.com.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses are powered by Meta AI, so you can get real-time answers.
Hey, Meta, how bougie is Jade Garden?
It's a trendy spot.
What's a color that pairs with this top?
Consider dark, earthy colors, charcoal or black.
What are some good first date topics?
Consider discussing favorite travel destinations or your favorite books.
Get suggestions, inspiration, and answers from your glasses. Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Iconic style meets Meta AI.
No matter how you travel, it's good to have a plan. Some people plan every minute. No sleep, bus, museum, another museum, while others only plan to take it day by day. When it comes to your finances, a plan is just as important. You can count on Credit Karma to give you the insights you need to understand your options, so you can take charge of your financial path and find your way to money. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on. Download the app today.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk Party. With us is our co-host, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. And I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, for our final segment, I want to raise the issue of the proposed ceasefire. The conversation is going on right now in two different countries about a deal between Israel and Hamas. So the question that I have is this going to be a good deal? Is this going to be a bad deal? What does it mean for the future of the Middle East? What does it mean for the future of, frankly, of Western civilization? Eric, your thoughts?
Well, it's a rather broad question, but let's talk about the more narrow issue about the ceasefire itself. So the Trump administration proposed a ceasefire. The Israelis accepted it, and in response to that, Hamas accepted the framework. And then everybody went hysterical. Oh, Hamas accepted the ceasefire. No, they accept the framework. It's a pretty standard operation for them. They accept the framework and then say, but we want this change, this change, this change, and this change, which isn't accepting the ceasefire. It's a completely different...
it's a continuing negotiation.
It's a completely different deal. And the Trump administration is basically saying, this is it, take it or leave it. And the deal is pretty much, there are 50 hostages remaining, 20 of whom we believe are alive. So for 60 days, the Hamas would release 10 of the 20 living hostages. And then the Israelis would release a couple hundred Palestinians from the prisons, in exchange. And then after the 60 days, depending upon how things evolve, maybe there'll be more discussions to get the other 10 living out and maybe extending the ceasefire. And Hamas is demanding that the war end and that they remain in place and that they're not talking about giving back all the hostages.
How about their arms?
Yeah, well, so but this is the fundamental reason why there never will be a permanent ceasefire with Hamas. This will not end until Israel wins and Hamas is destroyed. The two war goals that Israel must achieve in order for it to be a successful war is to get all the hostages back, dead or alive, and to destroy Hamas, eviscerate Hamas. It can no longer have any future in Gaza. Now, whether that means that every last member of Hamas leadership has to die, or whether or not the few remaining savages get to go and be dispersed around the world, but they cannot stay in Gaza. Israel must be allowed to win the war. And Hamas is not going to agree to lay down their arms and leave and to just give up, all the hostages. So I think we're not going to ever going to see a permanent ceasefire unless and until Israel can declare victory and achieve its two war goals. But one of the more interesting developments was a proposal from some clan members in Hebron, which is a city in Judea and Samaria in the West Bank, where they have
clan spelled C-L-A-N.
Yes,
okay,
C-L-A-N. Families, like big families. Where they have proposed that they would separate from the Palestinian Authority And they would want to enter the Abraham Accords and have an accommodation and peace with Israel, recognize Israel as a Jewish state within, recognize secure and international boundaries. And they would be able to operate their in their little fiefdoms and have a degree of sovereignty for their people. Now, what's interesting about that is that was kind of in the works back in the early 90s, before Oslo. And then Prime Minister Rabin and President Clinton came up with this brilliant idea. Maybe we can get Arafat out of Tunisia and we can bring him back, and then we can set up the Oslo Accords and maybe eventually evolve into a two-state solution, which of course the Palestinians have no interest in, have never had.
They want a one-state solution.
Exactly, which is just Palestinian and no Jewish state. Exactly. So Oslo was really the very, very beginning of laying the groundwork for Hamas coming to power in Gaza and ultimately culminating on October 7th. But what Oslo did at its core, probably nobody was really focusing in on at the time, is that it completely undermined an indigenous Palestinian population in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria that were prepared to work with the Israelis and accommodate the Israelis and work towards this kind of sovereignty. And by bringing Arafat back and the PLO back, it completely undermined all these people and set back peace negotiations by at least a generation, if not 2 generations. So will this work in terms of these clans reaching out to the Israelis and saying, let's adopt this approach? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know this. I know that what's been tried since 1948 has failed. And Donald Trump, even if you think the idea of building hotels, along the Gaza Strip on the Mediterranean is not a great idea, what is great about it is it's saying we need a new paradigm. We need a new vision of how things are going to operate if the Palestinians are ever going to have any sort of future and Israel is going to live in security. So I would give it a chance. I wouldn't dismiss it. But just coming back to the original question of what does it mean, the ceasefire talks, maybe again we'll get a first step, but we're never going to ultimately get that last step where Hamas is going to lay down its weapons. And don't misconstrue for a second that the Arabs are not rooting for the Israelis. The Saudis are rooting for the Israelis. The Emiratis are rooting for the Israelis. The Egyptians are rooting for the Israelis because Hamas is Muslim Brotherhood. They are Muslim Brotherhood. And if you were to ask any of those countries, who is the greatest threat to your security?
And Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, exactly. Iran would be number 2. Iran would be number 2. Now, of course, Iran has been somewhat... That calculus has changed as well. You don't have the fear of Iran anymore. It has been shown for the paper tiger that it is. So things have shifted. And don't underestimate the Arab perception of power. They respect the strong horse. If Israel has demonstrated nothing since October 7th, it is a regional superpower. And these countries understand that they must deal with Israel, whether they love it or not, hate it or not. They're going to have to make an accommodation with Israel because it is the regional superpower. And that is what they respect. So I expect that in relatively short order, whether it's the end of this year or the beginning of next year, the Saudis,
Syria?
Well, Syria is interesting. Broaden the Abraham Accords. Syria is interesting because even if you were to make a deal with Syria, the question is, what are you getting? Because the government doesn't control all the territory of Syria. Turkey controls part of the north. We have an American-controlled area in southeast Syria. You have the Kurdish region, which is somewhat independent. So it's a question as to what exactly the Israelis would be getting in that regard, what the Syrians could deliver. And I don't think the Israelis at this point are, under any circumstance, going to be giving back the Golan the extra portion of the Golan Heights that they took once Assad fell. They quickly moved into that area, the highlands, to make sure for their security. They're not going to be giving it back so quickly. So, look, there are talks with Syria. When the Israelis attacked Iran, they overflew Syria and they overflew Iraq on their way to get to Iran. So, and they got it with the permission of the Syrian government. So bravo for them. I think it's a great idea, and I support the president's lifting of sanctions on Syria to give it an opportunity to function, to see if it can be a true operating state. But it's a little early to say whether or not Syria has enough to deliver or can control the country if they enter the Abraham Accords. But Saudi Arabia is very different. Kuwait, very different. Pakistan, Singapore, Malaysia. These are countries that can, expand the Abraham Accords and truly normalize the region and basically change the world. And I think that's what we've got to be looking towards.
Jesse, your thoughts?
I agree. I think that this is a good first step. And I've said this on the show a couple of times, and I apologize for repeating myself, but I am always heartened when we see President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu together. And they were two high-level meetings earlier this week where this ceasefire was taking forward. And what I appreciate is that none of these actions will be taken without the acceptance and the endorsement of the state of Israel, which is important because now the world is showing, as has been said, the superpower in the region now is, and has always been, Israel, but now everyone is aware of it. And Iran is now this paper tiger that it used to be. And that's why sometimes these conflicts, and what we always said, the reason we needed to take out those nuclear facilities and attack those nuclear facilities is for not just the impact on Iran, but what the world was watching, whether it be Russia, China, and those other Arab states in the region, to show that there is strength through peace and that there is resolve on the side of Israel and the United States. I think as we tape the show on Thursday, 10 more hostages were being released, and this gives Israel the ability to recharge, repurpose itself, and be further prepared. And it'll also allow diplomacy, like we were talking about in terms of the Abraham Accords, to possibly move forward. But honestly, I agree with both of you. Until Hamas disarms, this is not going to be a ceasefire that's going to take place and be peaceful. They need to be disarmed. They need to be removed from influence in that region. They need to basically be obliterated so so finally peace and a cooperation can come to the Middle East. But I trust in Trump. Listen, a lot of us were complaining about him on this show and other shows, no matter what the network, that perhaps maybe he wasn't acting enough. Why are you delaying? Why aren't we sending bombers in now? And he's using the bully pulpit. He's using diplomacy. He's using negotiations as a tactic and a tool, while all the time he is backing it up with Plan B. And that Plan B, in this case of Iran, came in the form of B-2 Spirit bombers and the obliteration of those 3 nuclear facilities, along with those great sailors from the United States naval submarine. So I think this is a continued first step. It's a 60 days that we can remain diligent, but also recharge.
Jesse, there's just one point.
And then we have to sign off, John.
And then we'll sign off. So when you say Israel's always been the superpower in the region, that may be true, but it lost its deterrence effect, and that's what they've regained since October 7th. They have. That's what is so critical. And to your other point about America regaining its deterrent effect by attacking Iran, those are two critical things. Israel, up until as of October 6th, had lost it, and that's why Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, they felt like they could attack Israel because they didn't think they would be retaliated against.
Well said. Well, gentlemen, Jesse, Eric, it's been another great show. I want to thank you both very much. I want to thank our great guest, Speaker Mike Johnson of the United States House of Representatives, for being our guest in the opening segment. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, Judge Richard Weinberg. We thank you for listening. We look forward to being with you next week. And God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts, including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org.